My daughter chose her neglectful biological mother over our family and threatened my wife, so I cut off her college funds and expelled her from our home. Now, months later, she blames me for ruining her life. I find myself turning to Reddit today due to an unforeseen predicament I'm currently grappling with. Many years prior, my high school sweetheart Gigi and I found ourselves unexpectedly expecting a child. Despite our diligent precautions, fate seemed to have its own agenda. Upon learning of her pregnancy, Gigi became hysterical. She had long aspired to a modeling career and contended that motherhood would irrevocably shatter those ambitions. Throughout her collegiate years, Gigi had been balancing sundry part-time employments while incessantly auditioning, so I was acutely aware of the significance a career held for her. I empathized profoundly with her aspirations and promised to support her in any decision she reached. It was paramount to me that she knew I stood by her unconditionally. Regrettably, we discovered that her pregnancy had progressed beyond the point where termination was an option. This revelation was catastrophic for Gigi, as it seemed her dreams were dissolving before her eyes, thrusting her into an excruciating dilemma. Amidst this turmoil, our families responded in starkly contrasting manners. My parents promptly stepped up, pledging to assume responsibility and assist us in every conceivable way. They were prepared to guide us through this new chapter and guarantee the best for the child. Conversely, Gigi and her mother held an entirely different viewpoint. They were adamant about relinquishing the baby for adoption post-birth. Gigi's mother was convinced that this was the optimal path to allow Gigi to pursue her ambitions unencumbered by guilt or the obligations of motherhood. My parents and I were staunchly opposed to this notion. I incessantly reassured Gigi and her mother that I would assume full responsibility for the child, vowing that Gigi need not partake in any parental duties if she so desired. I endeavored to persuade them that we could navigate this situation without surrendering the baby. Yet, despite my entreaties, they persistently insisted that relinquishing the child and severing all ties was the correct course of action. Gigi was particularly resolute because she feared that if I retained the baby, I might attempt to reintroduce her into our lives in the future. She sought to eschew any potential entanglements entirely, desiring a clean severance to proceed with her life devoid of attachments or remorse. I spent countless days imploring and assuring Gigi that once she relinquished her parental rights, I would never seek her out regarding the child again. I promised her she could continue her life without ever having to contemplate the baby, utterly unburdened by guilt. Ultimately, both she and her mother acquiesced, and that is precisely what transpired. After Gigi gave birth to our daughter, Diana, she recuperated and resumed her life. My parents and I assumed full responsibility for Diana's care. At first, juggling my academic pursuits with the demands of a newborn was arduous, but I have never lamented my choice. Witnessing my daughter flourish imbued me with immense joy and a profound sense of purpose. During the remainder of my collegiate years, Gigi evaded me entirely. She never once asked about our daughter, and I remained faithful to my vow, never troubling her about it. My attention was wholly devoted to nurturing Diana and establishing a stable life for us. Diana was my entire world, and words scarcely capture the depth of my affection for her. It's often said as a unique bond between fathers and daughters. From the instant I first beheld her in the hospital, I knew this to be an incontrovertible truth. When I cradled her in my arms, the sensation was overwhelming, as if my entire cosmos had realigned to orbit around her. She infused my life with an indescribable sense of purpose. I lost count of how many times my peers jested about me becoming a father prematurely. They would remark that I was forfeiting my youth, suggesting I should be out enjoying myself instead of changing diapers and tending to a child. Regardless of their jests, I paid them no mind. They couldn't fathom the bond I shared with Diana, or the profound fulfillment derived from witnessing her growth and discoveries. Admittedly, my collegiate experience diverged significantly from theirs, but in retrospect, I wouldn't exchange it for anything. Every milestone Diana achieved, every gleaming smile, every shared moment rendered all my sacrifices immeasurably worthwhile. I labored relentlessly to graduate with commendable grades while simultaneously managing a part-time job to sustain my daughter. Single parenthood is extraordinarily demanding, so I am profoundly grateful to my parents for the times they intervened and cared for Diana whenever possible. Whether it was babysitting her during my nocturnal study marathons before exams or offering sagacious advice and a sympathetic ear when the strain became overwhelming, their unwavering love and support enabled me to weather the most arduous periods. Their altruism and devotion permitted me to concentrate on my academics and provide for my child without succumbing to undue stress. Upon finally graduating, securing stable employment, and amassing sufficient savings, I was elated to relocate with Diana into our own abode. It was a significant milestone for us both. I meticulously selected every piece of furniture, adorned Diana's room, and ensured everything was immaculate for our new life. This endeavor transcended mere shelter. It was about cultivating a sanctuary where we could forge new memories and genuinely feel at home. In the initial years after our move, it was just Diana and me. I would depart for the office, retrieve her from daycare, and we would return home together. After freshening up, I would assist her with homework while preparing dinner and assembling her lunch the following day. Over time, I acclimated to managing everything solo. Admittedly, there were occasions when fatigue overwhelmed me, and I had to enlist my parents' assistance, but predominantly, I was ever present for my daughter, and she could rely on me unconditionally. Being her father was my paramount priority, and witnessing her flourish as a joyful child was immeasurably rewarding. When Diana reached the age of 5, I encountered her future stepmother and the love of my life, Chloe. Chloe was a divorcee who had emerged from an abusive marriage. Despite her tumultuous past, she was an extraordinarily kind and compassionate soul. It was her interactions with Diana that truly captured my heart. Chloe comprehended the significance of Diana in my life and embraced her unreservedly. Observing the bond they forged and how effortlessly Chloe assumed the role of a nurturing figure in Diana's life solidified my realization that she was the one with whom I wished to share my life. When Chloe and I wed, Diana served as our flower girl. I cherish those endearing photographs from the ceremony, depicting how she remained by our side throughout. She appeared so sweet and jubilant, and it warmed my heart to witness her integral role in such a momentous occasion. The wedding was a celebration of joy for all, and our little family was enveloped by love and support. My parents especially were ecstatic. They wept tears of joy, cognizant of the hardships I have endured over the years. Observing me finally discover love and construct a happy family was profoundly meaningful to them. It was a splendid day, suffused with love, laughter, and the anticipation of a radiant future together. Over the ensuing years, Chloe consistently demonstrated herself to be a devoted stepmother to Diana, nurturing her as if she were her own child. After relocating to a more spacious residence that Chloe and I acquired together, I was beset by the tragic loss of my parents due to health complications. This period was devastating for me and perhaps contributed to my diminished attentiveness toward Diana. It was during this tumultuous time that Diana began experiencing bullying in high school. Some of her peers, informed by their gossiping mothers, discovered that Chloe was not Diana's biological mother. The fact that Chloe possesses blonde hair and a more angular nose, while Diana has brown curls and distinct facial features, accentuated their dissimilarity. When Diana's classmates began taunting her about the situation at school, she became despondent and reclusive. They uttered cruel remarks, suggesting that her biological mother had likely abandoned her out of a lack of love, and that Chloe would eventually forsake her as well. At that time, I was oblivious to Diana's internal struggles. She concealed her anguish, and it wasn't until matters escalated that I recognized the extent of her suffering. One day, we received a call from the principal's office informing us that Diana had allegedly assaulted another student, resulting in a broken nose. Upon receiving this startling news, I was utterly astonished, as my daughter had always been gentle and compassionate. Chloe and I hastened to the school, eager to ascertain what had transpired. In the principal's office, we discovered that Diana had been subjected to relentless teasing by another girl over an extended period. Finally reaching her breaking point, Diana had taken matters into her own hands, hurling a stone at her tormentor in a surge of anger and frustration. Learning about the bullying Diana had suffered engendered a tumult of anger and sorrow within me. I was inclined to confront the other child and her parents immediately, prepared to defend my daughter vehemently. However, Chloe, ever the voice of reason, succeeded in pacifying me. The other girl's parents demanded that Diana apologize, but I was incensed. I threatened legal action against them and the school for permitting my daughter to be subjected to prolonged psychological harassment. I argued fervently, highlighting the gravity of bullying and how it had propelled Diana to her breaking point. I asserted unequivocally that bullying a minor was intolerable and that they bore responsibility for allowing their daughter's behavior to escalate unchecked. My vehement response appeared to unsettle them, and they relented, opting not to pursue the issue further. I refrained from reprimanding Diana for her actions because, deep down, I comprehended the anguish and torment she had endured for months before finally asserting herself. It was a heart-rending situation, but I was proud of Diana for mustering the courage to defend herself despite the severe repercussions. Following that episode, I recognized it was imperative to have an honest dialogue with Diana about her biological mother, Gigi. Up until then, Diana possessed only a nebulous understanding of why Gigi was absent from our lives. I had never fully divulged the particulars to her. I sat down with Diana and candidly elucidated how Gigi and I had become parents at a tender age and why Gigi chose to depart. I reassured Diana that Gigi's decision was not a reflection on her. I explained that sometimes adults are ill-prepared to raise children, and such was the case with Gigi. I emphasized how fortunate Diana was to have Chloe in her life, someone who loved her profoundly and cared for her as her own, willing to do anything for her welfare. I wanted Diana to grasp that family transcends biological ties. It's about love, care, and those who stand by us unconditionally. After our discussion, I hoped Diana would move beyond her curiosity about her biological mother. However, a few weeks later, she confided that she was attempting to contact Gigi. I was profoundly concerned because I knew how adamantly Gigi had insisted on no contact. Despite my cautions, Diana was resolute, and I was greatly apprehensive that she might encounter disappointment or rejection. To my astonishment, Gigi responded to Diana's overture and appeared amenable to meeting her. Part of me was relieved by Gigi's willingness, but another part harbored skepticism regarding her motives. I cautioned Diana to exercise prudence and endeavored to prepare her for any eventuality. Diana, however, was ecstatic and embraced Gigi's words wholeheartedly. She promptly arranged to meet her biological mother at a mall and was adamant about going alone. I insisted that I accompany her, at least to drop her off and confirm if it was indeed Gigi. Reluctantly, Diana acquiesced to my stipulation. On the appointed day, I drove Diana to the mall where the meeting was to occur. Upon arrival, I anxiously surveyed the crowd, searching for any sign of Gigi, half expecting her absence. Suddenly, Diana spotted her, a woman who was indeed Gigi. She hadn't changed significantly, still as striking as ever. Gigi greeted me courteously and assured me she would bring Diana home after their conversation concluded. She expressed gratitude for the chance to meet her daughter and appeared genuinely sincere. With a swirl of emotions, I decided to leave them to their conversation, affording Diana this pivotal moment. Several hours later, true to her word, Gigi returned Diana home. My daughter was radiant with excitement, evidently having relished her time with her biological mother. When I inquired about the meeting, she effused about how wonderful Gigi was and how much they shared in common. She told me that Gigi regretted abandoning us and now wished to be part of her life. Part of me was pleased that Diana seemed so elated, but another part harbored concerns about Gigi's abrupt change of heart. After all, she had unequivocally stated years ago that she wanted nothing to do with us. I conveyed my apprehensions to Chloe, who shared my misgivings. Chloe reassured me that we couldn't control the situation and that we could only hope Gigi wouldn't inflict emotional harm on Diana. Over the ensuing weeks, Diana began meeting with Gigi regularly. She appeared happier than ever, and I didn't wish to deprive her of that joy. However, I began noticing alterations in her behavior. She began requesting more money than usual, asserting it was for school projects or social outings. Initially, I didn't scrutinize these requests, but then Chloe observed that some of her jewelry and other valuables were missing. We were perplexed about the whereabouts of these items. Naturally, we approached Diana for explanations, hoping she might shed some light. Each time we inquired, she vehemently denied any knowledge of the missing items or their location. She accused Chloe of being negligent and suggested that she was likely overreacting. Feeling unsettled, we decided to install cameras in common areas at Chloe's insistence, aiming to identify any potential intruders pilfering from us. One day, Chloe couldn't locate her wedding ring. That was the tipping point. We reviewed the camera footage to see if it could offer any insights. What we observed was startling and upended our perceptions. It transpired that whenever we were absent, Diana would wander through the house, appropriating items that weren't hers. As we watched the security footage, we witnessed Diana entering our bedroom and emerging with something in her hand, an unmistakable image of my wife's wedding ring. When I confronted Diana about the theft, she initially denied any involvement. However, upon viewing the footage, she broke down and confessed. She admitted she had been giving the money and stolen items to Gigi, who claimed she needed assistance. I was incensed and felt profoundly betrayed. I couldn't fathom that Gigi would manipulate our daughter in such a manner. Then matters took an even darker turn. Diana informed me that she wanted me to leave Chloe and reconcile with Gigi, asserting that Gigi still harbored feelings for me and regretted our separation. I was aghast and told her she was being delusional. I affirmed that my love and commitment to Chloe were unwavering and that her relationship with her biological mother was distinct from our marriage. Diana became enraged and declared that if I didn't acquiesce, she would make our lives unbearable. She threatened to create turmoil in our family and vowed to do whatever it took to dismantle our marriage. I was appalled that my own daughter would utter such things. I endeavored to reason with her, but she was unyielding. I recognized that decisive action was necessary. I informed Diana that since she placed such trust in her biological mother and was approaching adulthood, I wanted her to move out immediately and reside with Gigi. I told her I would cease all financial support and that she would be responsible for herself. Diana protested vehemently and attempted to challenge my decision. She even resorted to making more vile threats about destroying my life and career, but I remained unmoved. I contacted Gigi and requested that she come to collect our daughter. That shameless woman exhibited no remorse when I confronted her about instilling such repugnant notions in our daughter. Gigi merely shrugged, stating that it was Diana's choice. Months elapsed without any contact from Diana. Then, unexpectedly, she reached out. She explained that she needed assistance in funding her college education. Apparently, she had been accepted into a university but required financial support to cover the expenses. Diana conveyed that Gigi was experiencing financial hardships but assured me that her biological mother was actively seeking employment. I told her that countless students annually take out loans to complete their education and that she should consider doing the same. I also remarked that since Gigi was the one who had instilled those toxic ideas in her, she should be the one to assist her. Diana became distraught and accused me of ruining her life. She said I was selfish and never cared about her. I told her she had made her own choices and now had to face the consequences. I felt sorrowful, but also recognized that I couldn't enable her behavior. Update: I have spoken with Diana, and she has agreed to let me pay for her rent. She is currently searching for new accommodations. Following some advice, I will be sending the rent payments directly to the landlord to prevent Gigi from misappropriating the funds. Additionally, I intend to discuss with Diana the prospect of returning to college. Of course, this time Chloe will not be involved in any of it.